properly.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you, sir. So, as you can see, the title of my talk is on intelligent observer-based resilient control methodology applied to power systems. From the brief introductions given by Dr. Arnav, and as far as the title of the talk is concerned, so it is somewhat clear that the person who is going to deliver his lecture for next 90 minutes, his background is on control systems area. So I will try to focus on this control aspects for the systems which is having these renewable energy resources. So I prepared these presentations keeping in mind the objectives of this course, and I hope the presentations will help the participants to continue or to further accelerate their research works, their MTech thesis works in coming days. So, if you carefully observe the title of this talk, you can find out, or rather, you can explore three important key terms or key words. One is hybrid power systems. Second is the resilient control methodology, and third one is the intelligent observer. So actually, this intelligent observer assists the controller to refine its control actions so that the performance that we are actually looking from the systems that can be accelerated. So I assume that in last 2 days lectures, the merits, demerits with the requirement of distributed energy resources, renewable energy resources have already been covered by the others experts. So, but I personally believe, or rather, I used to do in my regular course also when I used to teach the students in regular classes. Whenever we start a new topic, I strongly believe that revisit of the basic or prerequisite is very important. Because if we revisit the basic concepts, so that may help us to get a better idea, or that may help us to explore the new topic that we are going to start to discuss in better way. So these are the contents of my presentations. You can see that the introductions following modeling and methodology, then a disturbance observer. So two types of disturbance observer shall be discussed in the due course. Following the control structure, I preferred here the sliding mode controller. Rather, I picked up sliding mode controllers, keeping in mind that the MTech students are also the participants of this course. And of course, the PhD students, those who are practicing their research work in this area, they also get some inputs from these presentations. We shall cover few parts of fractional order calculus. Rather, we will discuss if the integrations of the fractional order calculus takes place with SMC, what are the possible outcomes or what are the possible benefits that we can claim from that hybridized structure. Some simulation results are presented following their inferences, and finally the conclusions. So these are the possible outcomes from these presentations. So after the completions of these sessions, I believe that the participants will be able to perform a stability analysis of power systems. There are different form of stabilities are there in the power systems, but this presentation covers the small signal stability only in terms of the frequency. But the same thing can also be extended to the voltage stability or the rotor angle stability also. Of course, the system which I have assumed to perform this analysis is integrated with the distributed energy resources. Then they will get an insight of the fractional order sliding mode controllers as a frequency regulator to maintain the frequency level at the theoretical value. Of course, that is 50 hertz in ideal situations. And we will discuss the disturbance observer with fractional order in one phase and the second phase with artificial neural network to compensate the endogenous and exogenous system disturbances, And we will see whether these integrations in true sense help us to accelerate the system performances or not. So as we all know that this in the current situations, the power systems network is on the verge of transformations into the smart grid. Actually, the continuous growth of the network-based control systems also encourages researchers to focus their research work or to concentrate in this area also. So that actually explores the benefits of the renewable energy resources, and of course there are allied technological growth, and the growing concerns on the large carbon emissions into the environment also pays the mm, energy policy planners, also enforces the energy policy planners to pace their efforts in this area. Moreover, the existing power system is being criticized on the accounts of becoming high tariff with the increasing of fossil fuel price, erratic power supply, and other operational constraints, for example, geographical constraints or distributed populations, political constraints, etc. So keeping all these constraints in mind, the people's or this power system network is transforming into the smart grid systems, and we have seen that whenever we talk about the microgrid initial stage, and of course, while the network-based control systems and smart metering systems are involved in the operations and controls of the microgrid systems, it comes into in the form of smart grid only. So it actually houses renewable energy resources, conventional energy resources, and energy storing systems, which mainly useful in the remote areas to meet the isolated load demand, especially. Hybrid power systems delivers the alternating current of fixed frequency, and these are an emerging technology for supplying electric power, stable electric power to the remote areas. This houses the renewable energy resources like PV, wind, biomass, etc., and the storage systems. Hybrid power systems gets its popularity as a standalone power systems to meet the isolated load demand due to the advancement in RERS technologies, renewable energy resources technologies, and of course the rising of fuel price, which I already mentioned. It also offers higher system efficiency with a greater balance between the electrical power supply. So I think all of you are aware about these merits, demerits, and other requirements of this hybrid energy systems and distributed energy resources. But I just revisit all these points for the better discussions of the next topics. So here I have shown this slide is actually presents a single line diagram of a hybrid energy distributed systems. So we can see here that it actually has a renewable energy resource, that is wind power generator or wind turbine generator we actually have. So this is the wind power systems. This is associated with a standby generator, so diesel engine generator. These are the loads that we want to meet. And of course, there is a combination of aqua electrolyzer and fuel cell. So we actually have a two renewable energy resources over here with a conventional generating resource, that is the diesel engine generator. So this is a schematic structure of this. Currently, this fuel cell also gains greater attention from the researchers because of their high efficiency in energy conversions and low pollutions and diversity of fuels. And we all know why this backup source is required, because this powers, the power which we are supplying from the wind power generator is actually depends on these environmental conditions. So that is not in our hands. So depending on these variations of this wind speed, this also varies. So it may happen that to meet this load demand, we need a standby power generator. So that is the reasons we have a diesel engine generator, but it is the only problem that we have with this diesel engine generator is its slow performance compared to the others energy sources involved in this diagram. Another important problems which actually encourages researchers to think about the advanced control methodologies, that is the intermittent characteristics of this output power. As I already said, that this output is actually a functions of the environmental uh, variable, the environmental parameter. In case of a PV, we have to depend on the solar irradiations, and in case of this wind power generator, we have to depend on the wind velocity. So as it is not in our hands, so depending on the variations of these inputs, so output will also vary. So we will get an uncertain and unknown variations over here, because this is completely uncertain and unknown. So uncertain and unknown input always produces the output which is uncertain in nature. So now just think in that sense. Suppose we are having a plant. We are having a plant which is operating at a stable regions under the control of a controller. Now suddenly some disturbance comes to the plants. So this disturbance, of course, in this case, it is the disturbance which is coming to the plant. So this disturbance is unknown and uncertain, which actually affects the output operations of the systems. So the controller that we are looking for, under on this real-time environment, must be compatible to countermeasure this disturbance effects and ensure that this output actually follows the reference input, because that is the control objective, the main control objective in any case, that under any circumstances the controllers or the control algorithm that we are employing in the plant or employing in the systems must ensure better tracking of this output characteristics. As long as it is a servo problems. If it is not a servo problem, if it is a regulatory control problem, then this output must be asymptotically converges to the equilibrium points. So these are the control objective, and keeping all this control objective, we have to look into this controllers. Now the controller important. Why this controller design? Why it is important? The design of this controller is important in this case, because as I already said, that this input to these power generators is uncertain and unknowns. So that may cause of uncertain output, and this output shall be treated as a disturbance to the plant. That is a power grid, for example, which is running at a stable conditions. And suddenly I have integrated a large amount of wind power generator to the power systems. So obviously this intermittent output will try to harm the stability of the systems. So that has to be taken care of with the designs of these controllers. So that is the main objective of these discussions. Okay, which type of controller shall be proposed for these hybrid power systems, which is working in islanded operations under these real-time situations where this plant or the system is experiencing large disturbances, how it help us to cope with those disturbances, and how it help us to ensure the desired output of the systems. So that is the main objective of these presentations. So in between, if the participants have any queries, so they can ask the queries. I will be happy to answer those queries. So one of the problem is, I think it is clear, that is intermittent characteristics of this output of this wind power generator or PV actually destabilizes the system's operations, and we like to ensure that stability must be retained at any working environment when the system is experiencing this uncertain and unknown disturbances or perturbations. Another most important fact that also encourages us to think about advanced control methodology, that is the rapid load variations. So due to this rapid load variations and environmental conditions are also dramatically changing. So these dramatical variations in the environmental parameters like temperature and other things, and the rapid load variations also create some stability issues when these distributed energy resources are integrated with the conventional systems. Now, all these facts actually motivates researchers to design a resilient frequency controller, because whenever there is a variations in the load demand, so that actually varies, because we know that there is a control of PF controls. So when there is a variation in the load demand, so accordingly this active power has to be controlled. And this active power is actually a function of the frequency of the generator. And the generator is always, the generator has to be maintained its synchronisms under any circumstances. So if there is a variations over here, so that actually gives a variations of this frequency. So objective of this resilient frequency controller is to revive this frequency within a very small cycles after this load variations or any other parameter variation or any disturbances happens in the systems. So from that sense, it is very important that actually ensure the stability, that ensure the reliability of the systems. And of course, we have to ensure the robustness of the overall structures. Now we know that while we design a controller, of course, we are talking about this design in offline mode only. So the controller that we are trying to design in offline mode, and then we will place this controller in the system when it is working, and we will see, or rather we will try to investigate the performance of the controller, whether it acts properly or not when this actually comes in the real-time domain. So that is the normal practice. So this controller design is actually dependent on the system modeling. If we don't have the modeling, then we cannot design these controllers in offline state. So this mathematical model of the physical systems, we all know that it always has a mismatches from its real-time domain, because there are n number of attributes involved in the real-time model, and it is very difficult for a designer to consider all those variables into their model so as to design the controller. So that is not possible. So what we used to do, we take a valid assumption, and based on those assumptions, we try to develop the mathematical model of the real-time systems, and considering that mathematical model, we try to design this controller which actually covers all the objectives, the objective which is specified by the designers. And this controller, of course, this is the most important thing for the control peoples. This controller must be competent to tackle the system uncertainties. These uncertainties could be due to the environmental effect, what we call as an exogenous disturbance. And it could be due to the internal variations of these system states or other things, what we call as an endogenous disturbance. So this uncertainties has to be taken care of, and finally it has to give the desired performance within a given time frame. So from this discussion, it is very clear that when we discuss the design of a controller, the modeling of the plant needs to be developed at first. Now, the objective of this problem, the problem that we are addressing in this presentations, is to design a resilient controller to cope with the system's unknown and uncertain disturbances and offer desired system output. That could be in terms of the frequency, it could be in terms of the voltage of the synchronous generator terminals, field terminals, and of course, it could be the power or rotor angle. Anything can be considered as a output variables. Now we can revisit the definitions of the modeling. The modeling is actually nothing but the representations of the dynamical systems by some basic laws. So that actually help us to design, that actually help us to analyze the behavior of the systems and will assist to design the controllers. As I said at the beginning that we shall talk about the small signal stability of the power systems only in these discussions. So the small signal stability is the proficiency of a power systems to uphold the synchronisms under small disturbances. That means we assume that the operating point, the normal nominal operating point is perturbed due to small variations or small variations in the load demand, small variations in the environmental situations or operating environment. So that is actually characterized in terms of the small disturbances. So due to the small disturbances, the operating point may perturb from its nominal value, and we are trying to design this controller so that this controller can drive this system's output or system states to its equilibrium point once this disturbances die out. Normally, the interesting fact is that if a systems if a system is sick, if a systems exhibits small signal stability, sorry, I can define this in other sense also. So if a system is not exhibiting the small signal stability, that means the system is not stable, because the small signal stability is the only stability which is to be performed at the nominal variation, which is to be performed with a small variations in the operating situation zone. So this is the good practice to ensure the stability of the systems, or to design these controllers uh, for measuring its performances. So you can see that the variations could be due to the load, due to the generations, various control devices, characteristics of various control devices like facts and other things. So this is what the small signal stability is. Now, this is a schematic representations of the test systems, which I have assumed to, to carry out these presentations. So it actually representations of two area power systems. So this is the area 1 and this is the area 2. So two power systems are connected by a tie line. So one can assume that this is the area 1 having generators and other things. This is area 2. This is also having the generators and others necessary equipment. And these are connected by tie line, so that the power sharing between them can be takes place. So these areas are assumed to be thermal type. These are assumed to be thermal type. So this is the power system. This basically represent the synchronous machines and loads, and I have represented them by a simple time lag transfer functions. So time lag transfer function, that is k by 1 plus s into t. Why I have assumed like this, that is also to be defined uh, in this sense that as we are talking about the small signal stability, where the system performance is to be investigated against a small disturbance only. So it is a good practice to assume the systems in a linear form. So this is what the uh, base method by which our systems can be described in a linear transfer function form. That is a gain over transfer function. Sorry, gain over time constant. So this is the power system, which actually includes the synchronous generator and the loads. Then we have a turbine over here. So we assume that the turbine power is limited by the generation rate constant. So there is a non-linearity over here that actually limits the maximum power generations from this turbine. And it is under the operations of a governor. So that is the primary controller in any power generating unit. This actually what we are trying to do, we are trying to control the valve positions of the governor through these droop control mechanisms, so that the amount of steam, the required amount of steam can be ejected to the turbine blades, so as to generate the required amount of power. Because I already said that this active power, is actually a function of frequency. So if I supposed to control this power, then accordingly the frequency can be controlled. So same thing that we have assumed in the area 2 also, just for the simplicity. Then we have another loop over here. You can see this is one loop. This is one loop, primary loop we used to call, and this is the secondary loop which actually ensured zero steady state error, because you can see that this loop is actually having an integral action. So we know that the integral actions increases type of the systems. Subsequently, it helps us to minimize the steady state error. So this is the case we have assumed. And additionally, what we have considered over here, we are having a variable speed wind power generator over here. So this is a wind power systems which is also integrated with this conventional system so as to meet the required load demand. So the load variations is defined or represented by this parameter delta PD. So PD is this load, and we know that in real time this variations is represented by this delta term. So this actually the load variations shows the load variations in the model. So this is the model that we have assumed to design the controllers and subsequently to study the performance of the controllers. Now, as far as this wind power system is concerned, you can see these are actually having three blocks. One is aerodynamic model, then is the drivetrains, following the generators, and the output power is actually controlled by a controller, because that I will come to why we have placed a controller over here. That we will come in the next within next 2 or 3 slides. So we know that the dynamical systems can be easily, or the best way to represent in the state variable form. So this is the state space representations of the model AXT plus BUT and BDDT. So this actually shows the disturbance term. So this actually shows the disturbance terms. These matrices having their compatible dimensions so that these equations can easily be solved on a simulation platform. And this is the output equations. So while we develop this A, B, C, D, what we have done, we all know there is a thumb rule that we have to assume the output of the block as a state variable, which is either having a time constant or an integration. I repeat, this is a thumb rule to consider the output of the block as a state variable, which actually has either time constants or an integral actions. So as we can see in this block, there is a time constant. So I can assume this as an x1. So obviously this is going to be x2. I can assume this as an x2. So obviously this is going to be x2 dot, and so on. So in this way, this entire systems can be simulated. And finally, we got the results as follows. So actually this ABCD also includes this wind power systems also. So before I come to these dimensions of this ABCD, so let us first discuss how I have designed these wind power systems to carry out this performance or to carry out this analysis under the framework of small signal stability. So you can assume that this is the schematic representations of any wind power systems. So this is the wind aerodynamic models. These are the blades of the wind turbines, which is highly subjected to the wind velocity, which is completely uncertain and unknown. So this is uncertain and unknown. Then we have a drivetrain. Actually, this is a mechanical coupling shaft that actually gives a coupling between these wind aerodynamic systems and this induction generator. And finally, we have the generator over here. So this is the schematic representation of the systems, and we like to derive the small signal stability model of all these three major components one by one. So this is the aerodynamic model. We know that the mechanical power, what it does, it simply extracts the wind energy and convert it into the mechanical power. So the mechanical power, we all know that it has to be represented in this particular forms. So you can see that this mechanical power is actually a function of this proportional to the cube of the velocity, wind velocity. So that is the input to these systems. Now one can see that suppose we want to control this mechanical power. Now, how do we control these things? So it actually has a functions of two things, or rather you can say it is a function of three important variables. So this is the air density, which is constant. This is the area of the blade, that is also constant. Now this is not in our hand because it is an environmental factor. So we cannot control this. So if I supposed to control this PM, then I can control it by this last term only. So that is Cp, which is actually a function of lambda and beta. So you can see that the Cp can be defined in this particular form, where the lambdas and betas are defined by their respective equations. Now, what is this lambda? Lambda is actually the tip speed ratio, and beta is the blade pitch angle. So what we used to do, we regulate this blade pitch angle. So if we regulate this blade pitch angle, keeping the lambda constant for a given value of lambda, so accordingly the Cp will be regulated. So once the Cp gets regulated, to some extent this PM gets regulated. So once this PM gets regulated, what we can ensure, the electrical power from this wind power systems is also regulated. And why we are looking for these regulations? Because if we supposed to, or if we are able to regulate these things, to some extent we can minimize the uncertainties effect of this wind velocity on the system output. Because I already said that this actually is nothing but the source of disturbance in the study. So if I supposed to regulate these things, or if I able to regulate these things, this mechanical power by the regulations of this rotor, blade pitch angle, so we can regulate this electrical power, and finally we can ensure minimum variations at the system output when large amount of wind power system is integrated into the conventional systems. Another things that can be ensured from this diagram, this is actually the variations of this rotor power coefficient. This Cp is called the rotor power coefficients with lambdas and beta. So we can see that if we increase the blade pitch angle, the mechanical power extractions, you can see the mechanical power extractions reduces. So what we have to do, if the mechanical power extraction is reduces, so that means electrical power is generation is also less. So what we are doing over here, we are trying to operate this wind turbine rotor at an optimal speed, such that this rotor can extract maximum amount of power from this wind energy, or in other sense, we can ensure that this Cp can attain its maximum value. This is the maximum value, and in theoretical, it is to be limited within 0.59. We call it as a Bates constant. So it has to be limited within this. However, this turbine speed means this speed I'm talking about, this omega t. So omega t has to be chosen optimally such that this Cp can attain the maximum value that is less than 0.59, and we can ensure maximum extractions of the wind energy from the through this wind aerodynamic model. Now next is the coupling, mechanical coupling shaft. Now what it does, we know that this section, the turbine section, this is actually the wind turbine sections, or wind side you can say, and this is the generator side. Now this section is running at a very low speed. So this is actually omega t. There is a change in the syntax. So this is running at a very low speed compared to this generator. But this generator is running at a very high speed. So that there is always a asynchronizations between this torque, the mechanical torque, and this electrical torque or generator torque. So what we are doing over here, this torque synchronization is to be done through this gearbox. So this gearbox is actually help us to maintain the synchronizations between this mechanical torque and the generator torque. So now there are if I refer to the literature, we will see there are different methods are available by which we can represent this mechanical coupling shaft in mathematics. So one of the most acceptable method is this, or rather one of the most popular method is the two mass model. Actually, these two mass models represent this mechanical coupling shaft as a as a spring damper system, as a simple spring damper system. So this spring damper system representations will help us to develop the mathematical equation or the dynamical equations of this coupling shaft. So this actually we applied the D'Alembert principles after having this spring damper representations, and then from this D'Alembert principle, using D'Alembert principle, we have calculated these three equations which actually represent the two mass model of the mechanical coupling shaft. In the literature, you can find out the three mass model also. Next is the generator part. So I assume that the generator is an ideal. So in ideal situations, that this electrical power, so PE, is actually defined by this torque, and it is a product of the torque, generator torque, and of course the speed of the generator. Now, this can be represented by a simple first order differential equations. So this is the first order differential equation. This actually control the output of the generator. So this T control is nothing but this control law that I was shown in this figure. I was talking about this fact. So UW is nothing but the T control that actually controls the output of this generator so that this uncertainty effect can be minimized, and whatever the output that we are actually looking for, we can gain or we can attain that output. So this T control is nothing but this UW term. So with this all model of the subsystems, we derived this ABCD model. So you can see this is the A matrix, that is a system matrix. So there are some variables over here like A10, 10, A11 and other things. So which are defined over here. So A21 is this, A31 is this, A65 and other things. Anyway, so we have this A matrix. We also have the input matrix, that is a B matrix. So actually we have a three control inputs. So we can go back to the diagram once again so as to identify what are the control inputs. These are the control inputs, U1. This is the second control inputs, U2. And this is the third control input, U3. So it is there are three inputs, three control inputs. So it has a three rows and respective columns equal to the number of states. And then we have a disturbances. So what are the disturbances? Let us examine. What are the disturbances we have? Come to the diagram. So we have a disturbance. One in the area 1 in terms of PD1. Another one in the area 2 in terms of PD2. Then there is a PW. And of course, there is another disturbance which involves in this coupling equations. So there are four disturbance factors, and yeah, this actually disturbance. So four disturbance, and this four disturbance makes this matrix as four rows and respective number of columns, which are equal to the number of states of the systems. Now, as I already said, our objective of this discussion is to design a controller, frequency controller actually, that cope with the system disturbances and ensure the steady state operations of the systems. Of course, within a very small period of time. So if I refer to the literatures, then we will find out different control strategies have been reported, starting from the conventional one to the intelligent controllers, modern control systems, non-linear control systems, etc. So one of the popular control schemes is the sliding mode control approach. We all are familiar with this word, sliding mode control. Now, this sliding mode has the biggest advantage that it offers the high degree of robustness to the systems against the system disturbances and uncertainties in comparison to the conventional controllers. And of course, the design is not so difficult like the other nonlinear controller like backstepping or feedback linearized controllers. Now, this control strategy is generally used and embedded PI mechanisms. Normally, when we design this controls sliding mode controller, we adapt two control laws. One is called the reaching law, and the second one is the switching law. So, while we choose this, or rather, that is the objective of the designer. They have to design the suitable reaching law and suitable switching law to meet the design requirements, and for which we are supposed to choose a sliding surface. So that sliding surface, while we choose the sliding surface, that has to be chosen based on this PI mechanisms only. So that's why I say that it actually embedded PI mechanism it has, such that power systems can be stabilized for a wide range of operating conditions. Now, that there are certain problems that we always face in the design of the sliding mode controller, and one of the most important problem is the high frequency oscillations at the controller's output, what is called as a chattering. So chattering is one of the big issue that we face in the design of the sliding mode controller, and the people are continuously putting their effort to reduce this chattering, because this chattering may problem creates the problem to the final control elements and other equipments which are connected with it. So this chattering has to be reduced. Now, yes, there are different schemes are there. One can have a boundary mechanisms where the switching surface is to be changed. In place of having a sliding, uh, what I call sine functions, they can have a saturation functions where they assume a linear boundary within a thin linear boundary within the operating points, or operating point in the same scale, the area where the sliding surface is defined, and we can or we can have an integrations of the intelligent algorithms like artificial neural network or fuzzy logic approach, which also help us to reduce the chattering. Another important or another things that I have seen in the literature is the integration of the fractional order calculus into the sliding mode designs. Fractional order calculus integration actually enables to improve or enables to increase the degree of freedom, the controller design degree of freedom, and of course it increases the flexibility also. And the study shows that if we integrate the fractional order calculus with the sliding mode controllers, it accelerates the state convergency. It accelerates the state convergency. That is also a very good that is also an important advantage that we can explore with the integration of the fractional order calculus into the sliding mode surface, into the sliding mode design. So let us just quick review the design steps, how this design is to be carried out. So we know that initially we have to define a sliding surface. So I assume that this is a sliding surface which is actually having this fractional order type equations, differential equations, of course. This actually shows the proportional actions. This actually shows the integral and differentiate actions, because d is the operator which is nothing but the d of dt. So this d to the beta is actually showing the fractional operations of the derivative actions, and then d to the -1 xt is actually the integral actions. And the beta is a fractional parameter which is to be chosen between 0 and 1 in normal situations. Now in step 2, what we are doing, we design, or rather we have to find out the equivalent control law. So for which we have to differentiate this thing with respect to time, and then we have to set this differentiation to 0. So if I do so, we will get these terms. So this is the equivalent control law that actually drives the states which are outside of the sliding surface to the sliding surface within a finite time. That is the job of this equivalent control law. So first, the states which are outside of the sliding surface, they drive to the sliding surface, and once they are on the sliding surface, they slides to the equilibrium points, and then slides to the equilibrium point on the defined sliding surface. So this is the switching law that actually help us to accelerate these states which are now on the sliding surface to the equilibrium point. And we assume a discontinuous control law. Because of this discontinuous control law, we have a high frequency oscillations or chattering at the controller outputs. These are the design parameters. So we can see there are 4 design parameters: alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, and alpha 4. These are to be chosen such that certain assumptions or certain constraints shall be fulfilled. One of the constraints is that one thing which I missed out, that while we design this sliding mode controller, we are assuming that this AB pair has a full rank. Has a full rank, in other words, this is completely controllable. So this is the one assumption that we have to fulfill while we design this K1, alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, alpha 4. Then this B matrix should not be a singular matrix. And of course, while we choose this alpha 3 and alpha 4, because these are the switching gains, alpha 4 is actually the switching gains. So these are to be chosen so that these high frequency oscillations can be minimized. So normally the people prefer LQR scheme to design this alpha 1 and alpha 2, and just with the trial and run methods or based on their design experience, they design this alpha 3 and alpha 4. So once these are available, then what we can do, we can design the final control input by using this equation, that is a summation of these two control law, equivalent control law and the switching control law. Now finally it comes. So this control law is to be generated. Now I request everyone to carefully focus on these terms. So this is the system matrix which is available to us because we have already designed. This B matrix is also available with us. Then this alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, alpha 4, all these things that we have already derived either by applying LQR or pole placement approach. The sliding surface sigma t that we have already chosen as far as the design criteria are concerned. Now there is a factor over here that is zeta t. Now what is this zeta t? So as I said before, that we have defined the systems by this first order differential equation as A of xt plus B of ut plus BD of dt. So these terms, BD of dt is actually represented by this factor zeta t. So that actually defines the uncertainty presence in the systems. Now here in this case, we have assumed the external disturbance as an uncertainty, source of uncertainty, but one can assume this with the dynamic variations of the parameter, system parameter. Sorry, this is not zeta t, this is dt. So they can assume the dynamic variations of the system parameter also as a function of zeta t, and then they can do the necessary analysis. Now, why I say to focus on these terms, that is very important. Our objective is to generate the required control actions that actually drives this frequency changes to 0, because the frequency is constant, so the change of the frequency is to be 0. So that is the desired value, one can say. So I have to design this ut such that this objective can be met. Now this is actually a function of zeta, or the disturbance, which is completely unknown and uncertain in nature. So now let us think in that sense. Suppose we are having some mechanisms by which this factor zeta is being estimated beforehand, and subsequently this estimation has been augmented with the control actions for further refinement. Then, as a result of it, betterment in the system performance is possible. I repeat, the zeta factor is completely unknown and uncertain. We don't have any options to have a direct measurement of this zeta t. So what we can do, we can derive a methodology through which this zeta t can be estimated beforehand and subsequently these estimations shall be augmented with the control laws for further refinement and betterment of the system performance is possible. So this actually help us to think about different estimator or observer, which actually not only estimates the states, not only estimates the, also help us to estimate the disturbances. Actually, this reference is not correct. This is V. Patel. So this is a recent work has been recorded in this journal, Computer and Electrical Engineering Journals. So one can refer to this paper to have a better explorations of this topic. So okay, come to the discussions. So I was talking about that. Okay, let us estimate or let us derive a methodology that actually estimates the disturbance zeta t. That actually estimates the disturbance zeta t. Now, what we are doing over here, we are not estimating zeta t directly. What we are doing, we are taking a upper bound of the zeta t, say it is zeta 1 or zeta hat, whatever, and we are trying to estimate that upper bound of this zeta t, and this estimation is being augmented with the control law. I hope it is clear. Our objective is to estimate this zeta t, but we cannot estimate this zeta t because it is completely uncertain and unknown. So what we are doing, instead of estimating this zeta t, let us estimate the upper value of the zeta t because this disturbance is upper bounded. That is an assumption we have taken while we design this control methodology, because you cannot assume a disturbance which is unbounded. Always we have to have a bounded disturbance assumption, and based on that we have to design the controller, because in real practice once this disturbance comes which is characterized as unbounded, then your system will not work at all. You cannot do with any kind of controller. So that is not happen actually. Whatever the disturbance comes in the real-time domains, they are always bounded. So we are trying to estimate this upper bound of the disturbance, and then we will augment this upper bound informations to the control law for further refinement of it. So this is the structure of the neural network which has been assumed for the estimations of this upper bound zeta t. So we have used the Chebyshev polynomial so as to design as a basis functions to realize this neural network in this paper. Yes, there are certain mathematics involved over here, so I am not going into that mathematics. So I request everyone to refer to this paper so that they can get the details of the mathematics. The objective of this discussion is to have a clear idea why we are looking for this estimator and how it helps us to improve the system performance. So this is one of the results which actually is shown in this slide that actually demonstrates whether this neural network is operating properly or not. Suppose the waveform which is marked with this red color is the profile of the load variation, is the profile of the load variations. A multi-step load variation has been assumed in the system. So this is the case of area 1. And this is the case of area 2, for examples. So we have assumed that the load variation in area 1 is something like this, and the load variation in area 2 is something like this. Okay. Now this neural network smoothly estimating this load profile. Neural network, you can see in this graph, yes, we can do further tuning in the design so that the speed of these estimations can be increased. That is also possible, because there is always a room for the improvement. However, as far as these discussions or this result is concerned, it is clear that this neural network based on this Chebyshev polynomial actually estimates this load variations, and approaches to the final value quickly. So good approximations of this load disturbance can be done with this kind of estimators. So now once it is known to you, then what you can do, you can augment to the control law. Just to have a quick understanding of this, let's come to the diagram once again. So you can see over here, I'm just discussing one fact because the same thing has been taken care of this case and this case also. So these system states are available with you. These system states are available with you. So you have taken the system state as an input to this neural network. Through this neural network, you have estimated the upper bound of the disturbance. This upper bound of the disturbance is being augmented with the controller. The controller has two inputs. One is the output of the neural network and the second one is the system state variables. And finally, the control law has been defined and it fed to the plant so that the necessary output regulations can be done. The same thing has been done over here. So you have assumed these states, the neural network fed to the neural network, then estimations done, then augmentations with the controller. So that actually helps us to improve the performance. Let us see whether it truly helps us to improve the performance or not, for which we have to go to the simulations results. So here you can see there are two different plots are shown. One shows the frequency variation in area 1. The second one shows the frequency variation in area 2. And third one is the variations of the tiling power. So the green one, the red one is the results corresponding to the integral sliding mode controller. And the next one is the fractional order sliding mode controller. So as you can see, the peaks value is significantly reduced when the fractional order calculus is integrated with the sliding mode controller designs. The same observations you can have in this case also. That is frequency variation at the output, frequency variations in the area 2 and the tilting power also. Not only that, the speed of the response, you can see the speed of the response is also improved. This has been improved because of the integrations of this neural network based estimations and of course the fractional order calculus into the control designs. Now, one more disturbance observer that we are going to discuss over here, which actually houses the advantages of fractional order calculus. This is the structure of the disturbance observer. I said already that the objective of this observer to estimate the disturbance profile based on the historical data. Of course, you can have a historical data, or what you can do, you can directly measure the state variables and then you can design these things. So the second thing has been done over here because we have not taken any historical data in this case. However, the historical data was taken in the designs or while we train this neural network, that time it was taken. So this is the plant. Okay, so what we are trying to do over here, I request everyone to carefully observe this block diagram. So this is the plant or the systems whose output that we want to control. Now this plant is experiencing these disturbances. So we all know that the control systems comes into its existence when the plant is having the disturbance. If there is no disturbance in the systems, so then there is no use of the control systems. So anyway, the disturbance is subjecting to the plant. Now what we are doing over here, we are designing an observer, what is called as a disturbance observer. This measures the state variables also as well as the disturbance. But normally we focus on the disturbance because for measuring the state variable, we have a state observer. So one can simply simulate that observer. But that is not the requirement in this case. Anyway, so this is the inverse model of the plant. So nominal plant that we have with the measurements of the output variables. Then we will design a low pass filter such that this high frequency component of the disturbance can be discarded. And then we estimate this disturbance profile. This is actually the upper bound of the disturbance profile. In the last slide, I saw it, I was represented it by the zeta bar. So one can assume that this eta hat is nothing but the zeta bar. So upper bound of this disturbance has been estimated and then it gives to this control law. So this is actually the control law. UT. Maybe some controller is here. So that controller's output is the control law. So what it actually happens when this disturbance comes, this estimations actually nullifies the effect of this disturbance to a great extent. So that is the main objective of this disturbance observer. Now, as I said, that we are housing the fractional order calculus in the designs of this fractional order, in the design of the disturbance observer. So we have assumed a plant. It is a fractional order type of plant because you can see that it is not a integer type of differentiations. It is an alpha derivative of our state variables. Anyway, so this is the dynamics of this disturbance observer, fractional order disturbance observer. So this is the observer equations. This is the observer gain capital M, and okay, and this is the upper bound of the disturbance that we want to estimate through this equation. So this actually shows the dynamics of the disturbance observer. So this is the auxiliary system, which is characterized by these first equations. So you can see there is an auxiliary block over here. So this is to be characterized by these first equations, and subtract the solutions, whatever the solution we will have over here, that will help us to finally estimate these terms, eta hat t. Now, what is the design criteria over here? The design criteria is that we have to choose this observer gain capital M such that this estimation's error, which is defined this way, because dt is the actual disturbance subjected to this plant, but we are estimating this upper value, that is eta hat. So always we have an error. So the objective is that this disturbance estimation's error must be asymptotically converged as t approaches to infinity. So we have to choose this capital M such that this design criteria can be fulfilled. Normally, the people prefer pole placement approach so as to design this observer gain. Now, yes, we have to finally ensure that when this disturbance observer in true sense are stable or not. So for which we are referring to the Mittag-Leffler stability theorem. This is actually a extensions of a Lyapunov theorem for the system, which is defined in fractional order form. Because you have seen the plant that we have assumed over here is a fractional order type of plant. So the normal stability criteria cannot be applied to this case. So what we have assumed, we have used the extended versions of the Lyapunov direct method for the fractional order system, which is named as a Mittag-Leffler stability theorem, in order to verify whether the observer is stable, asymptotically stable or not. So it states that you have to choose the Lyapunov candidate. This is the Lyapunov candidate. Following these constraints, we all know that the Lyapunov candidate has to be a positive definite. It has to be a decreasing and radially unbounded. And once it is available to you, then you just do these calculations, the second calculations, take the derivative of that and see whether this thing is coming or not. This actually shows the strength of the state trajectory, the size of the state trajectory. And W1, W2, W3, these are the positive integers only. So these are to be defined by the users. So once it is true, then we can say that this the system is asymptotically stable in the sense of Mittag-Leffler stability theorem. I repeat again, we have to choose this Lyapunov candidate V of xt following these constraints, which actually shows whether your dxt is decrescent or not, whether your vxt is positive definite or not, whether your vxt is radially unbounded or not. So once this is available or once this is confirmed, then you do these calculations and just check whether this criteria fulfills or not. If it is fulfilled, then your system is asymptotically stable. If it is not, then it is not asymptotically stable. Okay, so one lemma, actually this is lemma 1, because in this discussion we have not taken other lemma. Anyway, so this is a lemma 1. So what it assumes that this disturbance is upper bounded. As I already said, that the derivative of the disturbance is also upper bounded. So that we have assumed zeta. Or you can think about a zeta bar, because in other cases I represent it by zeta bar. So that is an assumptions we have taken to perform the stability analysis. Now, the Lyapunov candidate that we have chosen is as follows. So that is half of ED square. Then we perform the alpha derivative of this function. So it comes. So then this is to be substituted because this comes from these equations only. So d to the power alpha e dt. So if you do the differentiation of these equations, then it gives these results only. And after doing some manipulations, we come out with the solutions only. So if I further simplify these equations, what we can write that ED is basically a function of like this. So what we have to do, we have to choose this aim such that this EDT asymptotically approaches as t approaches to infinity. So from this discussion, what we can ensure that the dynamics of the disturbance observer, which we have designed in the slides, ensure the asymptotic stability of the system, which is characterized by these differential equations. So that is most important in the designs of our controllers. Now we are in this case, we are trying to emphasize the effectiveness of this disturbance observer. So what we have seen over here, we have taken stochastic variations of this wind velocity. So we assume that the wind velocity is varying from 5.8 meter per second to, I think it is around 13.2 meter per second. So we have assumed that the VW is varying in this range. And this disturbance observer has been applied to estimate these variations. So you can see this is the black one is the actual profiles of the wind velocity, and the red one is the output of this disturbance observer, this fractional order disturbance observer. So it is clearly seen that this disturbance observer smoothly tracks or smoothly estimates the actual profile. Again, I say, again, there is a chance to improve the speed of the response. That is also possible by proper regulations of these design parameters. So we have, what are the design parameters over here? The design parameters are alpha, and the design parameters of is capital M. So we have to choose, or rather we have to define this alpha and capital M such that the speed of the response can further be improved. Anyway, so that is the scope for further improvement of this system performance. So from these results, it is very much clear that the disturbance observer we defined or we designed in the previous slides smoothly tracks the actual profiles. And let us see whether when we augment these things into the control law, whether it truly helps us to improve the system performance or not. So this is the frequency response of area 1, you can see, and this is the control effort. In one case, it is shown only, but just to save the limit, just to save the time, and to highlight the effectiveness or the merits of these controllers. Now, this is the fractional order sliding mode controllers, which is designed with the augmentations of this disturbance observer, fractional order disturbance observer, and the obtained results is actually compared with the conventional PID controller, fractional order PID controller, and the conventional sliding mode controller. So you can see that the variations, of course, there is a variations at the output, and it is quite obvious because the input is perturbed, because the input is the VW. So VW, which is perturbed, or it has a variations, randomness. So that randomness is also visible at the output. But the thing is that this variation has to be minimal. We have to ensure the minimal variations about the steady state, and for which we are looking for the controller only. So we can see from this zoomed plot that with this last one, that is the fractional order sliding mode controller, augmented with fractional order disturbance observer, offers minimal variations of the system output at the steady state. Interestingly, this effects in terms of the control inputs or control effort clearly examined in this diagram. So you can see this is the traditional sliding mode controller, and the second one is the fractional order sliding mode controller, which is augmented with this disturbance observer. As I already said, the main problem with the sliding mode controller is the high frequency oscillations at the control output, which may saturates the final control element. So this oscillation has to be damped out, or we have to not exactly damped out, but we cannot say this this oscillation will be completely nullified, because this oscillation will always be there, just to show the switching effects in the sliding mode controller designs. Anyway, but in this case, you can see the variations with this last controller is minimal compared to this conventional sliding mode controller. So the effectiveness of integration of fractional order calculus and integration of fractional order type of disturbance observer on the system output. The system output means the frequency response and this control law is clearly seen from these two results. So we come to the end. So what are the conclusions that we can infer from these presentations are listed down over here. So we have revisited the small signal stability model of a hybrid power systems so as to perform the necessary analysis under the framework of frequency instability. We have talked about the design of sliding mode controller integrated with fractional order calculus. Though the stability proof is not shown because of these slide limitations and the time limitations, in order to cope with the system's unknown and uncertain disturbances. And we, from the presentations, it is clearly visualized that the integration of fractional order calculus into the design of sliding mode controller help us to improve the chattering, to improve the robustness, and to improve the speed of the systems. Actually, the speed of the systems and the robustness, they are contradictory in nature. So what we can ensure through this control designs, that this speed of the response of the system has been accelerated without sacrificing or compromising the robustness of the systems under normal operating conditions. We also talked about the design of an artificial neural network based estimator. We have seen the result, how it smoothly estimates the load profiles and help us to improve the system performance in terms of the damping of oscillations, or in terms of the damping, in terms of the speed of the response, in terms of the peak of the magnitude of the frequency, response, etc. And we also showcase the effectiveness of the fractional order area disturbance observer to compensate the effect of the disturbance on the system's outputs. I hope these presentations definitely helps the researchers, those who are pursuing their master degrees, those who are pursuing their PhD degrees, to continue their work to apply this control methodology in their own problem, because control system is the area that can be applied to or that can be augmented with any problems or any systems. So whatever the control strategies that we have discussed, you can apply those control strategies to your own problems so as to check or so as to validate whether these control strategies are effectively working in your field or not. So this is all from my side. Thank you once again. Now, let me open the sessions for question answers. So if the participants have any questions, I will be happy to answer those questions. This is all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your very nice and informative presentations. Any queries from the participation end? Is there any query from participants end?
It means that the control system is not worked properly, because in control systems, there are always a need of feedback. Unless we have a feedback, we cannot correct the error. So since the feedbacks is not coming from the participant sides, that means the control system is not worked.
No, sir. Sir, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Hello.
Yeah, you are.
No, sir. It was a nice presentation, sir. So we listened carefully also, and we got some knowledge. So thank you very much for that. So anyhow, though you have explained about the estimation technique, so can you elaborate, sir, something about other enhanced estimation technique in this area?
Okay, estimations means if we are talking about the state estimations, Then we all know that we have a state observer through which we can do the estimations. That is a different case anyway. But if we are talking about the estimations of the system parameters, then we have a MRAC approach, what we call as a model reference adaptive control approach, through which we can estimate the planned variables which are actually unknown in nature. Actually, what happens in real practice, if we have a large systems, so it is very difficult to get accurate information of the plant parameters. So what we can do, we can develop a methodology through which we can estimate the plant variables, and thereafter we can develop our model, and based on the model we can do the controller designs. So that is one approach. Then we have a Q-learning approach also, that also help us to design the controller based on the estimations. So that actually the advantage of this Q-learning method is that it is not only ensure the adaptiveness of the controller, it also ensures the parameters of the controllers which are optimal in nature. Then you can apply the fuzzy logic schemes to identify the controller gains or to identify the system parameters. So these are the possible routes are open where the researchers or where the students can do their research work.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any other queries from the participants end? Okay, so I hope there is no other queries. So if anybody having any doubts or any more informations or clarifications, you can mail sir. Okay, so I think it will be helpful for your side also. Okay, so thank you, Professor Dipen Guha, for giving your valuable time to us. For your nice, also thank you for your nice, very informative presentations, sharing with us, especially fraction order sliding mode control. And okay, so thank you from our end. So Professor.
Yes, thank you, Professor Dipen, for your nice talk on resilient control methodology. Surely our participants get some idea if they want to further research on this area. This is actually a good platform. Thank you very
sir.
much.
Thank you once again from my side also to your entire team and the department for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this STCCOM FDP. It's a anyway, due to this pandemic and other things, we didn't get opportunity to have a physical interactions with the students or with the participants and the organizers. But I wish in future when the situations will restore, we will definitely get a chance to visit either your campus or in our campus to have a mutual interactions or to have a mutual sharing of our knowledge. Thank you, both of you, Arno and sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so shall we close now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you once again. Namaste.
Okay, so we are